Hello, good evening, and welcome to our new edition of the English News. Here are the top stories. Concerning the regional cooperation, the first AMISOM Contributors Country Summit has been held today at the Presidential Palace. And the 2016 presidential election disposed of 2 files from running candidates. And at the international scene, G20 finance ministers and central banks governors are meeting.
Thanks for joining us on RTD's newsroom. The head of state has had this morning a one-on-one discussions with its counterparts, the Somali Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, the Ethiopian Haile Mariam Desalegn, and the Kenyan Uhuru Kenyatta. They have been successfully received at the honor lunch of the Presidential Palace, welcoming at first the Ethiopian President Haile Mariam Desalegn. During this interview, the relations of friendship and cooperation between the two brothers and neighbors countries took place. Both countries have committed to securing peace and stability in the region. And then followed by the Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, the themes on the agenda of the first summit of the AMISOM, as well as the mechanism, have been addressed during the first summit of the AMISOM. And finally, the leader of state has received the President of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta. Kenya is a country which is suffering as much as Somalia of the repeated attacks of extremist movement Al-Shabaab. The two countries, being neighbors and sharing a long border, have a common population living in one or the other countries.
And right after this encounter, the works of the first summit of the heads of state and government of countries contributing to the African peacekeeping mission in Somalia have been opened this morning at the Presidential Palace. 8 countries have been taking part in this summit, represented by the heads of state, their prime ministers, their ministers of defense, and that of foreign affairs. In addition to Djibouti, the participating countries are Somalia, Kenya, Ethiopia, Burundi, Uganda, Sierra Leone, and Nigeria, last country to commit forces in Somalia. This summit aims to highlight the difficulties that the force of AMISOM encounter on the ground and will decline the broad alliance of the strategies in order to endorse with a view to greater efficiency in the objective of stabilizing and securing. Also on the agenda, exchange of information and expertise between the different countries engaged on the ground in Somalia in order to achieve a rapid improvement of the security situation in Somalia took place. The mission of the African Union in Somalia is a regional mission of peacekeeping conducted by the African Union under the mandate of the United Nations. This force of the AMISOM has progressed with its staff increased. It had at the outside in 2010 5,250 soldiers, including 2,550 provided by Burundi and 2,200 by Uganda. Then its workforce were passed to 8,375 in February 2011 and 9,700 in November 2011. In 2012, the number amounted to 12,000, including 850 military dispatched by Djibouti. 4 years later, its workforce will also double from 12,000 to 22,000 men. Beginning 2016, the AMISOM account 22 men came from Djibouti, Uganda, Burundi, Ethiopia, and Kenya. The main mission of this country's force is to support the transitional federal government in order to implement a national security strategy to train the security forces in Somalia, restoring the state institution, as well creating a safe environment for the distribution of humanitarian assistance.
Well, in this summit, it comes while the Somali capital, Mogadishu, is affected repeatedly by suicide attacks, where a suicide bomber storms in with a vehicle packed with explosives on a defined objective, and where other men, widespreading panic, open fire. In addition to last Friday, the last attack, where a terrorist attack aimed at a hotel and a public garden, has resulted in the death of dozens of people. The President of the Republic has also expressed his deep condolences to the President and the Somali people following this attack. President Gele has qualified this attack barbaric and criminal. He reiterated to the Somali President the solidarity of the people and the government of Djibouti to the sister nation of Somalia in its legitimate fight against terrorism. The ultimate goal through the organization of this summit is to engage a process of strengthening the action of AMISOM in Somalia. Somalia, a country ravaged by civil war since 1991, became the center for extremism movement including Al-Shabaab, which is now the sworn enemy of the Somali people.
And the Ambassador Ismail Shergi, Commissioner of the African Union for Peace and Security, has reaffirmed in his intervention the importance of the AMISOM mission in Somalia. It's quite naturally, he said, that we are all hosts of the President of the Republic of Djibouti, Ismail Omar Guelleh, who has invested in everything in the promotion of peace and security in Djibouti and in the region as well. This visionary orientation has allowed Djibouti to capitalize on the strategic position and large infrastructure projects which are today the synonymous of sustained growth, a better quality of life and optimism for the Djiboutian citizens. It must point out our eternal recognition, he has continued, for our brave soldier of peace who died on the field of honor, and the gratitude of Africa to your respective countries for the sacrifice made in honor to help the government and the Somali people to stabilize their country and get rid of the terrorists amassed for the good of Somalia and its neighbors. Excellence, heads of states and government, your constant support of and your policy direction are more than ever necessary for the consolidation of the gain safe and stability in Somalia, he has concluded, the Commissioner of Peace and Security.
Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud has overviewed in his intervention the situation in Somalia, which has improved significantly with the reinforcement of AMISOM forces. Let's listen to the President.
First of all, I would like to appreciate the effort and the commitment of the troop contributing countries in Somalia and the mission of AU in Mogadishu, as well as our international partners who support this mission in the 9th year we are in now. I praise and pray those heroes who fall for the sake of one and only one reason, to make Somalia a better place to live for the Somali people and to make Somalia a better nation that contributes the peace and stability of the region and the world at large. The peace of Somalia, as well as the peace of those who came to Somalia to make sure that Somalia is a peaceful place, is very important. The growing transnational security threats in East Africa today has a phenomenal global phenomena that ascertains a threat to the international peace and stability. The urgency of the time and how to defeat Al-Shabaab remnants is all the more imperative that we have today in front of us. We consider the upcoming AMISOM SNA joint military operation to be a decisive and end game changer. Today, as we talk right now here in Djibouti, AMISOM troops and Somali National Army are moving in different corners of Somalia, pursuing the strongholds of Al-Shabaab, their recruitment centers, their training centers, and their logistical hub. As I'm speaking right now, I know more than 3 places where the AMISOM and SNF forces are moving this morning towards new targets of Al-Shabaab. Somalia being the epicenter of the extremism in the Horn of Africa, defeating this extremism in Somalia is critical and is in all of our interest, because it will eradicate the likelihood of even more extreme group taking foothold in other regions that are adjacent to our region.
Taking the floor at the opening of this summit, the head of state, Ismail Omar Guelleh, has in the first place welcomed the head of state and government that participate in this summit. According to the head of state, the presence of these high-level guests demonstrate the ongoing commitment of their leaders and their country for securing Somalia. The troops of the AMISOM deployed in Somalia deserve our recognition, he has indicated. The head of state.
First and foremost, let me take this opportunity to wish all of you welcome to this first AMISOM Head of State and Government Summit. The Republic of Djibouti has the great pleasure to welcome you today on its soil. My country remains faithful to its tradition, which is the junction and exchange land, and the Djiboutians are more than ever happy to be supportive whenever it comes for the betterment of the Somali brothers' causes. Dear guests, I would like to welcome the Head of State and Government who wanted to honor with their presence this important event despite their heavy schedule. Your presence here demonstrates your commitment and your tireless effort to secure Somalia, but it demonstrates also your availability to work together to find better ways to permanently entrench peace on the whole Somali territory. I would like to thank the international community as a whole, and particularly the United Nations, for their support to AMISOM operation, support that we appreciate. Finally, dear guests, I congratulate our regional organization IGAD and my brother, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, His Excellency Haile Mariam Desalegn, the IGAD President, in his effort to accelerate the Somalian federal government formation process. I am, of course, referring here to the preparation of the 2016 election, and particularly the recommendation of the 55th special meeting of Council of IGAD Ministers held in Addis Ababa on January the 13 and 31, 2016. As you know, since the deployment of AMISOM's troops in 2007, many sacrifices have been made on the part of our countries. Today, I would like in this respect salute the memory of our brave martyrs who have fallen on the field of honor in the service of Somalia peace and security. To these peacekeepers who died for a noble cause, we must be continually grateful, and they will always remain in our mind. Our thought also goes to the brave soldiers wounded, to whom we wish a speedy recovery. Today we want, through this summit, reaffirm our commitment to give our guidance and political impetus to strengthen the AMISOM and Somali force capacity. In fact, we want to focus not only the undeniable achievements of our missions, but also to analyze the obstacles and challenges that AMISOM is facing.
In spite of the success registered by the forces of AMISOM, who have pushed the activists of Al-Shabaab extremist movement in Mogadishu and other major cities in Somalia, committing surprise attacks are often carried out by the latter, in which have an impact on the lives of the people, on the security and the stability of the country. The head of state has stressed that it must achieve to annihilate completely this action in order to restore the confidence of the Somali and hope in the future. Once again, let's listen to the President.
We face these days an upsurge in attacks by the terrorist group Al-Shabaab. Indeed, despite the defeat that Al-Shabaab have whipped facing our force, their attacks are spectacular. We must recognize that these attacks against first the population but also the AMISOM force demonstrate above all failures and deficiency in our troops' intervention. That is why we need to implement and consolidate success and security gain, and secondly, consider large-scale actions to permanently eliminate the threats posed by Al-Shabaab. The reality on the ground is changing every day. We must now reaffirm our commitment and agree on the necessary political guidance, our capacity as a head of state and government. It is a must to make every effort to strengthen the AMISOM operational capabilities first, and Somali troop in order to fulfill its duties in the best way possible. These reinforcement capabilities must also meet the need on the ground and therefore in their interest to be expressed in the form of coordinated training, equipment and logistics. We reiterate our deep gratitude to all partners, including the United Nations, the European Union for their support, and we hope to enhance consistently the financial and logistic support, but also to coordinate through an assessment the implementation mechanism under the edges of the African Union. Finally, I welcome the AMISOM political decision contributing countries like IGAD and the African Union, which are to strengthen their contribution. Nevertheless, we hope that this political commitment will be supported by our resource mobilization willingness, especially in equipment to support the troop deployed on the ground. Today, Al-Shabaab is a threat to the security and stability of Somalia and the regions. Therefore, it is a must to combine the improvement in the security situation and encourage its ongoing process, which should be inclusive and take into account the actors of the Somalian society as a whole to the restoration of a viable and stable state.
Official signing ceremony has been conducted between the heads of state and a government of the troops and police contributing countries for the AU mission in Somalia. They have decided to reinforce the AMISOM Central Command. 6 helicopters will be integrated to AMISOM distribution device, and finally the leaders of the countries have decided to achieve a greater collaboration by exchanging information between them for overwhelming the terrorist movement of Al-Shabaab. And before the signing ceremony, let's recall that the President of Djibouti, Somali, and Commissioner of the African Union for Peace and Security have made a statement on the balance sheet of the summit of the head of state and government of the troops and police contributing countries for the AU mission in Somalia, and also respond to questions raised by journalists of the national as well as regional press. We will return in details on this statement and the press conference in our tomorrow's editions. And after the first AMISOM summit, which has been held this morning at the presidential palace, the different heads of states and their delegation went back to their respective countries. And upon their departure from the international airport of Humbuli, they have been greeted by the members of the government as well officials in civil and military. Let's recall that the participating countries at this summit are, in addition to Djibouti, Somalia, Kenya, Ethiopia, Burundi, Uganda, Sierra Leone, as well as Nigeria, which is the last country commit forces in Somalia.
President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, has left today in the afternoon to Doha, the Qatari capital, for a 48-hour visit at the invitation of Emir Othman bin Mohammed Al Thani. During this visit, the President of the Republic will meet with the Emir of Qatar. The relations of friendship and cooperation between the two countries and the two brotherly peoples and friends, as well as ways and means to promote and develop more, will be at the heart of these discussions. A large delegation, including the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mohammed Ali Yusuf, are accompanying the President of the Republic as part of this movement in Qatar.
And moving on to another news concerning the presidential elections, two personalities today filed their candidature for the upcoming presidential election of April the 8th. In this case, it's Mr. Mohamed Daoud Shehem and Mr. Hassan Idris Ahmed. The Interior Minister said in a press release, in quote, in this Sunday, February the 28th, Mohamed Daoud Shehem has filed his nomination as a USN candidate to April the 8th presidential election 2016, a receipt deposit has been given to the presidential candidate by the Interior Ministry. The application submission is until February the 28th to March the 8th at noon. Mr. Mohammed Daoud Shehem, candidate for presidential election, has filed his candidacy under the banner of the USN. He is the president of Djibouti, a party for the development. He was born in 1948 in Tajora. Mohammed Daoud Shehem was elected to the National Assembly during the 2013 legislative on the list of the USN.
In a second statement, the Interior Minister stressed that this Sunday, Mr. Hassan Idris Ahmed has filed his candidacy file as an independent candidate. A receipt deposit has been given to him by the Ministry of Interior. The Interior Ministry is reminding that the filing of the presidential candidacy applications to April the 8th, 2016 is set to February the 28th to March the 8th at noon. Mr. Hassan Ahmed Idris was in 1949 married and father of 5 children. He began his professional career at the National Education in 1969 as a teacher. With the accession of the independence of the Republic of Djibouti, Hassan Idris held several positions within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs before being appointed ambassador in 1989 at the Brussels and with the European Economic Community. Well, this is for tonight's news. Thanks for joining us and have a good evening.